Hi everyone, so today's video is a little study tips video where I have 5 study tips that you can maybe use or find useful. So basically today's little sit down video where I talk about some study tips that I find helpful and I use. And it's kind of weird seeing a sit down video after such a long time because I think the last one I did it was about a year ago. It was the individual quarantine when I did a sit down video, I think for the book review. But yeah, so you get to see my beautiful face for who knows how many minutes. But basically I stuck to 5 study tips just because I actually filmed this a few months ago and I had a bajillion on my list and I could not just edit that footage, and also I don't think the lighting was right in that video. So I'm just gonna stick to 5, but these personally are the most important in my opinion. And if you do like these, I can always make a part 2. Yeah, so let's just start the video. So to your surprise, this is actually not the first study tip, but it's more like a little disclaimer slash a little kind of transition into our study tips. So basically, all study tip videos basically say take this with a grain of salt, and that's exactly what I want you to do. So for all the study tips, I have different variations of them. So an example would be, how do you make a bed? I would give different ways of how to make the bed. It'll make a lot more sense when we get into the actual study tips, but I just want you to choose and try out what works for you. This is the beginning of school and the end of school for a lot of people around the world, and I think it's a perfect time to try out some different study tips. So try these out and pick which is suitable for you, because I know that there are a lot of trends and a lot of popular things out there, but it's not always going to work for each and every person. Me personally, I don't like using the Pomodoro technique just because I like working in longer periods of time and in more longer focused sessions rather than short sessions where I can't really get anything done in my opinion. So that's what I basically want to premise off of this video. Now we're actually gonna go on to the first study tip. So this is the first study tip, which you may have actually heard before. Everyone's heard the study tip, write down a to-do list, and you may not necessarily have a short one, which is what everyone recommends. And to-do lists are great and all, but once you have written down your to-do list, it can be kind of overwhelming and you might not know where to start. So a stream of consciousness or a brain dump can help with that. A stream of consciousness basically allows you to write down whatever's on your mind. You can write down your little plan with what you're going to do, what you're going to start with first. You can write down literally about anything just to get it out of your head so that you have a clear mind for when you start working. This conceptualizes your thoughts into little points so that it's easier to comprehend, and it's in a more simple format that we can understand. And that's basically why a brain dump helps us. So before your study sessions even start, once you've written down your to-do list, which I definitely stand for, you should definitely do that, go get down a random piece of paper or open up Notion or whatever you want to use and just type or write for, let's say, 5 to 10 minutes of time. Write down whatever is on your mind, what you're going to start with first, some difficulties you think that are going to come off with the little to-dos that you have on, literally anything to get you clear and ready to start with your work. But that wraps up the first study tip. So this is the second study tip, and by the flow of this video, it's basically going to be study tips for planning, study tips for what you're doing while you're studying, and then general study tips that you can apply throughout the process. So right now we're talking about what we're going to do while studying. So you should definitely 100% time the intervals in which you study in, because you need those breaks. You need them. But I'm not going to be talking about any of the methods like Pomodoro that have to do with the time interval in which you should work with, just because there are already a lot out there, and I also think that it's personal to you because, like I said earlier, I think in the disclaimer, I don't really use the Pomodoro method, although I do recommend the Animadora method for all my weebs and generally for anyone who likes to watch TV shows. But moving on from those time intervaled methods, the things I want to be talking about are timer apps. These are basically apps that you can use so that you don't get distracted on your phone or whatever device you have these apps on. So the basic one that I'm pretty sure everyone has heard of is Forest, but just in case you haven't, Forest is an app where basically you put a time interval for the time you're going to be studying for, and in that time you grow a tree. And if you exit the app, it'll basically kill your tree. And you don't really want that because it shows up in your forest as a dead tree, and I don't know, it kind of has a discipline factor so that you don't really go on your phone, iPad, or whatever you install the application on. These types of apps usually help me with focusing and not going on Instagram and not reply to messages and things like that during my study sessions. So probably as a lot of you know, Forest is paid on mobile devices. So I'm going to be giving some free alternatives to Forest that you can use so you can stay concentrated on what you're doing. So the first two are basically copy-paste replicas of Forest, which are Flora and Planty. Flora has very similar graphics to Forest, but it doesn't have as many analytics that you can see for your study sessions, but I still think it's good to use. The other alternative is Planty, which I think the graphics are quite different, but it's the same premise of planting a tree and you cannot exit the app, but it does give you more analytics for free than it does in Flora, so choose your pick. And then this is the app that I use, which is Bakery. So Bakery is basically the same thing as Forest, Planty, and Flora, but it's for baked treats. And I personally like this because I did not like the look of burnt food in my bakery. That's just a no-no. I want to own cute bakery and I want to make cute treats in it. I'd say the only downside to this app is the limit is 2 hours, but I personally think that's also a good thing just because you should not really be working for more than 2 hours at a stretch, I think, personally. But either ways, those are the free alternatives to Forest that you can use to stay concentrated. One honorable mention, which is not an app that if you exit it kills anything, but it's a really aesthetic study timer or timing anything really. It's called iDay. It's basically this timer app, and every day they have a different background. So when you open the app, it has a different aesthetic photo, and I think that looked really aesthetic, so I just wanted to mention it in this video. So yeah, so that is our second study tip, which is to use timer apps to track and keep you concentrated while you're studying. Here's Kirtana reminding you to drink your water. Our next study tip is music. Now, please don't click off this video already. I will explain myself. So basically, I am going to be giving you different types of music to listen to for different types of studying or tasks. And for my peeps who can't really listen to music while studying, I do have non-music alternatives for you as well. So like I said, identify if you can listen to music or not. But yeah, let's just get into the types of music that you can listen to for different types of tasks. So first on the list is binaural beats. Binaural beats are these very calming noises and sounds and music that kind of stimulate your brain to be in intense focus and concentration that help you comprehend and understand material much better. They're for intense focus sessions, so maybe during your exam time when you're learning content, or generally any time where you really want to understand or concentrate for longer intervals of time. I don't know the complete science behind it, but it does work because I have tried it out and it's very mellow, and I would even recommend my peeps who can't listen to music to try it out just because It's very unmusic-like because it's very serene and kind of peaceful. So make sure to give it a try maybe when you're concentrating for a little bit. The next type of music is violin music, particularly by Ludovico Einaudi. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but basically the particular song which I recommend is Experiences by Ludovico Einaudi. But basically it's this very repetitive violin track, and it's very easy to listen to because it kind of speeds up over time and kind of builds up your motivation as you're listening to it. I would recommend Ludovico Einaudi for more repetitive tasks, for making, like, for example, making flashcards. It doesn't take up too much of your brain power, but at the same time you do need to comprehend what you're putting in the flashcards, but it's still the same format of question answer, or input output. Making flashcards is definitely one of the perfect examples of when you should listen to Ludovico Einaudi. Our next type of music is something everyone has heard of, which is lo-fi. So everyone's heard of lo-fi, and they usually listen to it when they're generally studying. But lo-fi is actually better for more creative tasks and when you generally want to enjoy studying more, or maybe have a little bit of a less tight study session where you don't need as much concentration, maybe when you're doing a little bit of after-school revision after your lessons or whatever you have. You can find Google on Spotify, you can just find it on YouTube, and there's also this site called LOFi Cafe that has really cute and aesthetic graphics, and it's basically this lo-fi radio, and I like using it just because of the little background. It really motivates me to study. But yeah, that's when you listen to lo-fi, during creative tasks and tasks where you don't need as much concentration. So now that I've talked about music for a little bit, I'm going to be mentioning a few different sites / things you can listen to as an alternative to music. So first one is coffee shop noises. If you just type this in on YouTube or Spotify, a lot of coffee shop noise videos will come up, and you can just use those. But along with that, a site I also recommend is I Miss My Cafe. Basically, you can adjust your little sounds of how much of you want people chattering, how much rain you want, how much maybe making coffee noises you want. You can adjust all that to make it sound like you're studying in a coffee shop, which is very main character-esque. So I recommend I Miss My Cafe. And if you don't really like coffee shop noises, you can, or just generally public space noises, you can go to lifeat.io, which has different nature sounds and different general noises, and you can control the ambience on this website, as well as there is a timer so you can track your study time. So those are all the different types of music and noises that you can listen to when you're studying. So our next and fourth study tip is basically about breaks. So this study tip is basically saying to use your breaks effectively. Now, I'm not saying that you should finish all your other tasks during this break, but I'm also not saying you should be scrolling on Instagram, looking at anime memes or whatever you look on Instagram. You should use your breaks in a way that benefits you, so that you come back to your desk feeling refreshed and ready to continue learning. Now, I recommend meditation, yoga, reading, but I know that's not for some people. So some alternatives are listening to music, maybe having a dance party. Your breaks should be used in a way that doesn't overstimulate you, but at the same time, you should have fun. But yeah, that is our little study tip about breaks. Now, moving on to our last study tip. This may have been a little short and sweet video, but I hope you got something out of it. This last tip is more of something that can help you study better overall, and is something external you can do. It's more like a habit, but it's to learn something on your own. It doesn't matter if it's a language, if it's a topic that interests you, or if you just want to get ahead in your class. Learning something by yourself helps you get involved with the whole learning process. When you're learning something completely new, you have what is called an unknown unknown. You don't know what you're supposed to know. If I'm learning something about, let's say something about plants, and I want to learn everything that's possible about plants, I don't know where to start. I don't know what topics come under that. So it's an unknown unknown. Being involved with the whole learning process, starting with looking for what's coming under what you're supposed to learn, how you're supposed to go about what you're learning, and all of the in-between. It's going to help you be more focused in a situation where you already have half of that done for you. Here's a little bit of a more, practical way to put it. But suppose all your life you've only had to put the pillows when you make your bed. One day, for 1 week, you decide that you're gonna do the whole bed. And you learn how to put the sheets down properly, how to put your comforter on, everything. After that 1 week, you go back to just putting pillows on the bed. It becomes much easier. Same thing with learning something on your own. I personally learned Japanese, and I also like getting ahead of what I'm learning. This, particularly for Japanese, I didn't know how it was supposed to go about it. I didn't know there were 3 alphabets in Japanese. I didn't know any of that. But in the end, it's helped me understand it better and has made it much easier for me to study things that I already need to do. Now, this study tip obviously isn't accessible to everyone because everyone's time is different, but I believe that good habits and good practices don't need time because you make time for it. But yeah, that is our last and final study tip.
Sorry, Snoopy. You can't go with us. Dogs aren't allowed on the school bus.